Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 27th of October. Continuing to push to new highs, and we're still at zero with the daily white NBI. That's pretty significant. The last time was well back over here in July, but it didn't take but a couple of days before that pretty much caved and sold off fairly decent. We'd have to see an uptick in it and that cross below of magenta. It's already starting that. May take a little bit more, but I would definitely be prepared for a little bit more volatility. It was very suspect today as far as some of the liquidity. There was a lot of jumping around from bid to ask, which is very unusual. Usually it's literally a tick. In some cases, it was 2-3 ticks on a given run, which that not surprising given what we've been seeing from volume-wise has been also rather weak. And that's always suspect when you're reaching highs on very soft volume. Just means there just isn't a whole lot of interest in either activity. So NQ, a lot worse there. It hit, and some people would call that a death hammer from a top standpoint. I think it's a little premature because you need to have some kind of backup reading to justify that that's going to generate more selling, but certainly not what you want to see from a daily candle at highs. Let's just put it that way. Euro continuing its back and forth slide. It's not doing anything. The Eurozone is not really much of a factor at this point. Everything's focused on this oil, and this is the ETF USO, and whether or not that's going to continue to do what it's doing is just going to, and you're starting to see this now. Analysts went from this transitory inflation talk to recognizing that, this may actually be persistent and have lasting impact. And you're already going to see that there are certain Fed areas have already started cutting growth. It wouldn't be surprising to see the U.S. economy move to recession, if not by the end of the year, but certainly going into the first quarter of next year. Seems almost a given. Now, will the Fed continue to supply liquidity? Well, that's obviously the expectation. And of course, in that weakness, people are still going to have to do something with their money, and they're going to take either poor yield or have to move into your hedge like Bitcoin, and some are already doing that. But if the market continues to suffer, it's going to be interesting because with the added interest into Bitcoin, you're going to see a significant sell-off in crypto if market suffers. Now, we've already seen that from its peak. We're already back down in the 62 range. We have 59 as a potential cover. I think there's a few others from a daily standpoint. 57 and 51, those were all off positive extremes from before. So just worth noting if you're in that space. And again, I put up that article explaining about how the short side of the equation is benefited by having these pro shares, the ETF, or even futures. It just opened up that to profit from both sides of it, and that's markets like to do. You need to have a counter trade to it, and only being able to buy or sell doesn't help. You need to be able to short that and take advantage of significant declines. From a 50K standpoint, well, we finally got, we had the peak move, and then early in the day, we crossed over with the red. We were still cyan under red, but once the green on DOC crossed below it, and the cyan then moved above. We still had significant strength here with the DOC steel coming from so low, but started to break away, and that gave short signal right there around the 74.50 range. So slightly off from that point as it is now. So we'll see if that exacerbates. You would want, typically in that case, for this to have had legs, to see the white move above yellow and magenta at this particular point. You're just not seeing any strength from a buy side. But if the white NBI should pop up above those, I would expect to see at least a move towards the 50%. And then from there, we would see whether it has a continuation. And then we'd be talking about down at the 45 level, which would be significant. So from a day stance, you can see some bit broader than it was the previous day. Pretty clean action. We started off with a huge run-up through all this. Really wasn't anything to get excited about. Even when this first cross came over, I was suspect of that. And then even when the second, we were still looking at rather high shakeout magentas, along with that DOC with the steel coming from below. So it was just one of those biding your time. And then things started to soften up as we saw us reach highs, and then the shakeout continued to decay. And then it was just a matter of picking which poison you wanted to start in at, and that led to the first reasonable decay in any length of time. And basically it was filling positive extremes. We had a series that began right at about this level, and that's where the first move hit. And it was a brief pop-up, but that pop-up really wasn't going to produce a whole lot of anything. It was still within the orange. And then white moved above, right there, and then you can see the yellow. And then we dipped into really deep shakeout here with those violet candles, the dots showing up, which is an indication that the shakeout has really moved into a lower field. And it didn't clear until just after this green bicycle took place right there. And once the magenta and that cleared, it was okay, and it kind of was pretty choppy. I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, I thought it was going to do more. And it slowly just started to, and it was pretty jumpy back and forth. And then we get the first indications with the magenta right there, which would have been reasonable. Just was looking for a little bit more from the long. I wanted to see a crossover of white over the magenta to really believe it. But then when it bounced back up and we started to see a little bit more softness, I felt that it was much more comfortable taking. That's when we started really seeing a lot of awkwardness in the moves back and forth from the bid and ask. And it was starting to get rather wonky as far as liquidity, which is super unusual from an ES standpoint. And even that still held on for quite a while, and then finally you can almost read it every time the white dips back below the red, and then the white comes back. It starts to build up its strength again, and that led to the decay all the way into the close. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. And in this particular case, when you see red leading on a turnaround move like that, you can expect that you're going to move back to the lows. It's one of the first things I look for. Even like on this rally back over here, I saw that red was leading that, and literally was happy to attack a little pop in that, expecting additional lows to be made, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And so all in all, worked out just fine. I will continue to update you. I was doing a lot of update programs and working with making some adjustments to the PNT so that we stay red until we get that clearing on some of these dips. That way this trend would just remain red throughout the entire sprig of it, as well as turning red on the sell signal up here, and that will just give us a little cleaner view. Just make it that much easier to follow the paint to what typically the Opus 2T would be doing as well. As always, though, I will update you on the Skype chat. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.